Chris Cuomo here. Thank you for joining me on NewsNation. And we start tonight with breaking news. Sean Diddy Combs, just hours ago, denied bail again. He will now be living that thug life for real, at least until his appeal. And if his case goes to trial and he is convicted on these RICO and other charges, he could be in prison for the rest of his life. Why? These are heavy charges, okay? We're looking at racketeering. That's RICO, okay? RICO's an acronym. Sex trafficking. Transportation to engage in prostitution. Combs' lawyer had changed their deal from yesterday when he was denied, okay? 48, 50 million now. And on top of all the money and the collateral, restricted visitation, and all visitors would be logged in, and that list would be delivered to authorities, okay? Obviously, limited travel and all these other things. What were they trying to do? They were trying to make the judge feel that he wouldn't run away, but just as importantly, what would he be doing on the outside? Could he get to witnesses? That seems to have been why the judge wanted to keep him inside. Now, does that remove any ability of Diddy to reach people on the outside? I don't think so. So let's discuss. Defense attorney Mark Geragos represented Diddy at a trial and is now with us. NewsNation contributor Sarah Azari, of course, with us. Former FBI agent, NewsNation law and justice contributor, one name only, the Coffin Daffer. Jen, thank you for being with us. So, anybody surprised that bail was denied a second time?
Nope.
All right, that means I default to you, Brother Geragos. Thank you. Why are you surprised? Why do you believe this was not the right disposition?
You know, as an officer of the court, I cannot make this recommendation, but I'm going to tell you what this tells any high-profile, famous defendant who is listening. If you get a search warrant executed on your house, pack up and leave. The message here is that if the prosecutor can charge you with heavy charges, which is what these charges are, if they can do this and they can cite an 8-year-old videotape of a incident with Cassie that was not prosecuted, was not investigated, and frankly, even though it's a horrific tape, it would have been filed as a misdemeanor if it had been seen at the time. The lesson here is if you put up $50 million, if you fly to New York in expectation of getting arrested, if you offer to have security round the clock to monitor you, that's not good enough. We're going to put you in a cell because prosecutors know that's the best way to either extort a plea out of you by putting you in there, or it's to destroy your ability to defend yourself, because it is infinitely harder to defend yourself inside than outside. This is not about that he was going to get the witnesses. This is not about he was going to flee, but it does send a message. The next time this happens, you're going to see a Roman Polanski and have a guy run off to Paris.
Two things. First, Mark Geragos is father to Tenny. She was on last night. She's part of the team. It's not something I'm hiding. It doesn't change his disposition of what he's going to say, although he was here for the interview with Tenny last night. He was giving me the stink eye the whole time, but I respect that as a father.
I did.
The second thing is the reason I have Geragos and Azari and Coffin Daffer, they all actually did the job. There is not a TV attorney in front of you right now except me. And Sarah, you said to me today in no uncertain terms, this was going to happen. He was going to be denied bail, and there's a very definite reason why, which is?
Well, Sarah's still doing the job, by the way. But yeah, you know, I was not surprised because with all due respect, and I know as defense attorneys, when we've got bad facts, we just spew horseshit at the court, in media, et cetera. And that's what I've been hearing for the last 24 hours. You know, the defense attorney, the judge inquired, how does violence not have anything to do with that Cassie video? Because the issue really before the court, Chris, was danger to the community, not really flight as much as danger to the community. So they were throwing zeros in front of that number, offering up their kids' baby mamas, you know, babysitting, a bouncer at the door, security cameras, which is complete celebrity justice if bond was actually given in this case. And, you know, think about all of these other similar cases, Epstein, Maxwell, R. Kelly, out of this very district and circuit, they were all denied bond. And so I'm not at all surprised. And when you look at, when he asked wait, hold on, Mark. When he asked the defense attorney,
I'm just going to tell you,
how are you addressing
Sarah,
violence?
At least compare
Wait a minute, let me finish my
apples
thought.
with apples. You listed a list of ones involving minors. There's no minor alleged. There's not multiple
doesn't matter.
victims
The Mann
alleged.
Act.
There's one
The Mann
victim.
Act applies.
Yeah, I know.
The
nothing
Mann Act
matters.
has no age
Nothing
threshold.
matters.
Well, okay, no, the Mann Act has no age threshold. But here's my point. The defense attorney, instead of addressing danger, he said, "Well, there's no danger in sex trafficking." I'm like, what? The predicate acts to the racketeering all are dangerous offenses. And he did not address the court. Mark, he did not address the court properly.
All right, so
I will just tell you one thing.
Go ahead, put a button on
Sarah,
it, and let's move on to the actual charges.
Next time Sarah flies to Vegas from Burbank, I'm going to start talking about sex trafficking, because the number of people who fly commercially to have sex in other jurisdictions is instrumental. So that kind of it reminds me of what Judge Kaczynski used to say in the Ninth Circuit. You give me a U.S. attorney, and there isn't a male walking around who the U.S. attorney can't find 3 violations of the U.S. Code for anybody who's walking around. And that's what we've done here. This is not a no-bail offense. I mean, and by the way, Sarah, the judge said he did not find the package good enough on flight. That was the last thing he said.
I know. That's what shocked me. I believe the court would be satisfied by flight, but not by danger, because danger, it comes from the facts that you just cannot alter. And coming before the court with this white glove package of bouncers and babysitters, I mean, when you present so many conditions, you make it easier for the judge to say, you know what, it's best that you just stay detained. Because we're not about that. Pretrial services is not going to go to that length.
Let's talk about the charges and what we see coming, because this phase is over. Jennifer, a big argument that was made yesterday was, and you heard Mark talk about it and Sarah qualify it through the Mann Act, and it all goes to consent. These aren't minors, so consent is a legitimate issue, and that will be his primary defense, is that whatever happened, you can feel any way you want it as a lifestyle, but everybody there wanted to be there. It was consensual. Jennifer, how does that work in a case like this?
Well, I think the problem with that, just look at that tape. Everybody doesn't want to be there. We saw her running down the hallway, getting drugged by her hair, and allegations made by multiple people are they did not want to be there. They did not want to participate. They were extorted. They were drugged. I mean, the whole set of facts here just adds up to this was not consensual. Otherwise, why would they be filing all these lawsuits?
So, Mark, now the Cassie video that we're looking at, which is, this is very explosive. This is bad for Diddy because he said it didn't happen, and then we all see it. But this is not part of the case. But are you not are you concerned, but does this come in as proof, because it's a RICO case, of how he conducts himself? And does that work on the consent side?
Well, clearly it's going to come in. The mother of the judge hasn't been born that's going to exclude the tape. I mean, that's the centerpiece. That's the irony of this, is that this is something that wouldn't normally come in or wouldn't even be a felony prosecution, yet it's going to come in as a Southern District RICO Act. And look, you read that indictment, and they all but telegraph in the indictment that there are other defendants that are going to get superseded into this case.
Yeah. And that's why the quiet has been deafening, to use the cliche. Do me a favor, Sarah. Make any point you want. But for those at home who's hear RICO, make your point, but explain what RICO is and what Mark is talking about with why this comes in the Southern District.
So 2 things. Number one, consent just is flawed and inapplicable. It's flawed because there's allegations that they were incapacitated, that they were under the influence. Secondly, it's inapplicable because it's a defense to kidnapping. It is not a defense to RICO. It is not a defense to sex trafficking. It is not a defense to prostitution. So consent is flawed. RICO, so long as you have a predicate act that occurred within the last 5 years, statute of limitations, or federal statute of limitations, which subtly is the witness tampering. The fact that Diddy in 2023 picked up the phone and called some of these people trying to silence them. When you have at least one offense that occurred within the last 5 years, it opens the floodgates, and Mark knows this well. It is the bane of our existence because it has such wide reach, lengthwise and width, and all this evidence comes in. And so the fact that Cassie video and all these things have expired statute of limitations, it doesn't matter because after that 5 years, the government can go back decade by decade and sweep in all of this other misconduct that maybe it might not even be unlawful under federal law.
So Jennifer,
it's unlawful under state law.
Rico was also the name of one of Sarah's dog, by the way. But the point here, Jennifer, is people will look at this, and I'm not saying in court. I'm saying, but this is going to be a public affair as well. Rico, that's like for the mob. That's for cartels. That's an organized crime thing. Why are they going after a rapper for Rico? Because he partied too much. How do you see it?
You know, it's so interesting you say that because when you look at the charges and the predicate offenses under those charges, you can see it's literally a mafioso playbook. It's what you always saw mobsters charged with: witness tampering, drug distribution, arson, bribery, guns with obliterated serial numbers. Listen, the only reason you have guns with obliterated serial numbers is because they were used in a past crime or they were going to be used in a crime. So it's mafioso, just a different form.
How do you see it, Mark? What's the counter narrative?
The counter narrative is this, what you have to understand. This is used, and it's supposed to be used originally, for criminal organizations that are furthering that by using the legitimate activity as a front. That's not what was happening here. He had a multi-zillion dollar spirits business. He had a very successful record company. He had a very successful fashion business. He had a media company called Revolt. He was a self-made billionaire. And he had pulled himself up through the bootstraps. He's a cultural icon. And the idea of using a RICO on this kind of a case I think, turns RICO inside out from what it was designed for. I'm not so sure that he's going to get traction because, he has now been so demonized that it's easy always to use the bad facts or the demon person as an example when you want to get them. But there is a narrative here, a counter narrative here, that this is something that should not happen in the criminal justice system. I mean, it is some of this. I've heard. Well, it was about consent. Sarah was saying that. There aren't allegations that the sex took place only because of the drugs. It was that there was sex and drugs. Remember, I'm old enough to remember when it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, we've just conflated stuff. Yesterday they were saying there's 50 people, there's 50 witnesses, but the indictment is one victim.
Go ahead, Sarah, make a final point.
In this indictment.
But Mark, the indictment is very clear that, and look, these have to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. These are just allegations, but the indictment is very clear that there were drugs administered to individuals for these freak-offs in order to have them comply. So the drugs and the sex are very much tied together. And this brother, man, didn't just think of the party. He thought of the rehab, which was the administration of IV fluids so everybody can kind of get re-energized. And so that, the government's establishing this idea of an enterprise. And I totally agree with Mark. They're abusing RICO. I've had it in cases involving regular pharmaceutical drugs, not a mob. And it's unfortunate until we have precedent that says otherwise.
Jennifer Coffindaffer, thank you. Sarah Azari, thank you very much. No Vegas for you anytime soon. Mark Garagos, always appreciated. Thank you, each and all. 4 minutes, 5 seconds. We're going to be talking about this case for a long time, and it's going to require a lot of education. And we'll do it. And we'll do it here, and we'll do it the right way. A new election forecast shows Harris hasn't just caught up with Trump in areas. She has passed him. Now, I will say that we don't have polls yet showing that the Democrats are winning in the popular vote the way they need to historically to win the Electoral College. But the question is, why is she catching up? Trump making mistakes, specifically reproductive rights. And one way to look at that issue is IVF. He says that he wants to protect it and get it paid for, and he's supposed to be in control of his party. But then why did senators just go bad on it? Two conservative women discuss the strategy here and the impact next. Up in every swing state as of right now in polls. The question is, why? Voters favoring engagement over enragement is my take, specifically on reproductive rights. Trump has been saying wrongly that everyone wanted Roe gone. It's not true. And wrongly saying he can protect IVF. Why is that wrong? Because Republicans, who are supposed to be loyal to him in the Senate, just did the opposite. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders made comments at a rally in Flint, Michigan last night. They show the problem.
You can walk into a room like this where people cheer when you step onto the stage, and you might think for a second that you're kind of special. Then you go home and your kids remind you very quickly you're actually not that big of a deal. My kids keep me humble. Unfortunately, Kamala Harris doesn't have anything keeping her humble.
I got to tell you, I don't get this angle going after women who don't have kids. Harris is a stepmother to two kids, Ella and Cole Emhoff. I mean, that would count to me. But what is this playing with whether or not you have biological women? Vance with the cat ladies thing, right? First, he was maligning women who don't have biological kids, and then he moved on to migrants. What's the strategy here? And is it going to work, or is it going to work against Trump? Rena Shaw, conservative strategist. Scotty Nell Hughes, conservative journalist and strategist. They also happen to be biological moms, which I believe could not matter less. Beautiful thing, great commitment of yourself to a greater cause, but I don't know what's going on here with this. Scotty, help me understand what the play is on playing with the fact that Harris isn't a mom.
Well, let me point out, you're only going to be insulted if you're looking to be insulted. And right now, the Democrats are looking to be insulted because overall, they're seeing that soccer moms, the closer that we get to November, are not just lock in step with what they want women to be to vote for Kamala Harris just because she's a woman. So their second strategy is to try to divide us. And how you're going to do that is because you have those women that have children and they want to divide it from those women that do not, because they feel like they're going to have a better chance making sure they turn up to the polls to vote for Kamala Harris, those that are single, than those with children who actually are having to not only think about themselves, but think about the future for their children in mind when they step into the polls that day.
But you are the ones drawing the distinction. The question is, does it work for you? Rena Shaw, when we see this with IVF, why does this matter? Is this why Harris had a surge with women in recent measurement polls over Trump? Do you think this issue is resonating, or is it more just the personality contest?
Draw a direct line back to J.D. Vance's debut after the RNC. You know, those comments of childless cat ladies really stuck me because I have 3 children of my own. They're great. I never wanted them before I had them, which is kind of crazy to think of. I was somebody that was raised up to believe that I could be something more than just a mother. And now that I have that great gift, I feel super fulfilled by it. But I realize not everybody wants kids. There are people who are child-free by choice. There are people who are child-free because of circumstances out of their control. And we do not, as a Republican Party, need to be attacking those people. You know, that phrase, childless, denotes I mean, that they're a separate demographic or something of the population, that they somehow are not as patriotic as we are, that they somehow do not contribute to society like I do with me and my kids. I mean, it's all very divisive, and it started with Vance. And now it's like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she's trying to have Vance's back, but she's just doubling down on the idiocracy. She didn't have to wade into these waters of saying that Kamala Harris is not humble. She's a stepmom. And look, last I checked, I think I have my history straight. There's never been a president of the United States that's given birth. And so her, if she wins, is no different. I mean, look, she's still a mom. And I think at the end of the day, this is a bad issue for Republicans to be doubling down on. And this vote in the Senate makes Republicans look like they need to be eating humble pie here.
Scotty disagrees because?
Oh, well, that you're bringing in IVF, first of all, there's dueling bills right now in the Senate. So let's actually get the facts straight. This was the Democrats' bill, and it wasn't just a straight IVF protection bill like the Republicans' bill that was proposed back in June by Senator Ted Cruz and Katie Britt. This was also about taxpayer-funded IVF for transgenders who chose to castrate themselves and then wanted to create a civil rights for transgenders to pursue gene therapy, sex selection, and cloning technology. That's why this bill got struck down. And it's just a copycat bill because Democrats realized that Republicans had this back in the spring, and they decided that they were going to try to find some way to take that wind out of the sails. But the truth will always prevail. I do have to take one issue with what Nina said. More than just a mom. We never say more than just a doctor. We never say more than just a broadcaster. So I take very offense to more than just a mom. A mom is a fulfilling career. And I think that's part of the problem. Is the left wants you to make you feel like that you have to be more than just a mom. A mom is enough of a career. That is just as great of a career as anything else. Some might even say better. So let's also, on our side, try to, don't fall for the left talking points. You can still not like Trump and also support moms and women. Say that is a great, excellent career choice.
But Scotty, I get that and I agree, but for centuries, that's all we've been. And now women are going out of that box and making choices. And because they're making those choices, they're delaying starting a family. And so what we have to realize about the modern woman is that I celebrate stay-at-home moms, but we have a chance to do more than motherhood now. And that's all I'm saying here is that we have choices beyond that. For the longest time, that was our only choice. And nobody's demonizing it except for J.D. Vance, who says it's childless. Why can't we say child-free? This is the problem here, is that we are looking like we're the party of no. As conservatives, we want freedom. As a freedom-loving American woman, we should have women who want in our party who say, you know what? I want the freedom to use modern, advanced medical technologies to delay starting a family until I feel like I'm ready.
All right.
That's what we do as Republicans. We want family.
So let's keep talking about it. Let's see how this evolves. This is just one snapshot in time. But tactics are at play, and we'll see how they're reflected in the numbers. I'll tell you one thing that'll add to the stew here. If I could do it again, my wife is way more successful than I am. I would have stayed home with the kids. If I could do it over again, I wish I had been with them. I miss them so much now that they're at college. It's killing me. And the little one wants to go to boarding school. If I could do it again, I would have stayed home. There's nothing I've succeeded at professionally that even comes close to how I feel about the kinds of people that we can help shape them to be. Rena Shaw, Scotty Nell Hughes, my life is one of regret. Thank you very much for both being here. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Up next, the man with the New York Times #1 best-selling book, Confronting the Presidents. Yes, he's here. Bill O'Reilly says, my man Trump, you better correct course. How? Why? And wait until you hear the inscription he wrote to me on my personal copy. Big news, Confronting the Presidents just started at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. Bill O'Reilly's latest work. So if Donald Trump wasn't listening to O'Reilly enough before, he better now, because look what he's capable of. And look what he wrote to me in here. I mean, it's a little personal, but still. Cuomo, it's not the way you spell my name. Thanks for making me look smart. Love, yours, Billy Boy, a.k.a. Cheapo. Honest, poignant, appreciated. Bill O'Reilly joins us now. Thank you for the book. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
It's a massive fraud you just perpetuated on every NewsNation viewer. So, number one, the next book is going to be Confronting Cuomo. And it's going to be all the times I've made you look very, very small. And
so it's a postcard.
800 pages. I don't know if I can get it down because, there's so much material there. So that's the next one, Confronting Cuomo. So this is the 19th #1 bestseller I've had. And I consider myself a very, very fortunate guy. We work very hard on the books, as you know.
Congratulations on the success. I'm glad you have it, and I'm glad that it's coming on something that's actually worth reading. People can learn something. So good. So on the teaching level, Donald Trump needs to change course. How? Why?
Well, he did it yesterday when he thanked the president and vice president for the calls at the Flint, Michigan rally. I thought that was very nice. And yeah, some of his more boorish supporters booed, but that's what he always gets. Fanatics are fanatics on both sides. They're not going to ever want détente. But I thought Trump the way he handled it yesterday was good, and I'd like to see more of that. I think that would benefit him.
So he also then said they're creating violence by calling me a threat to democracy. He then called them a threat to democracy. That didn't seem helpful. And his running mate continues to advance hollow allegations about migrants in Springfield. How does that grow the base?
Well, it doesn't. So if I'm directing the campaign, give me the stats on Springfield. More than 20,000 foreign nationals are in a town of 60,000. Town's overrun. The state has to now pay the bills to the tune of about $3 million. And it's going to get worse. Traffic accidents are way up. There's chaos in Springfield. That's my presentation. And it's all the fault of one man, Joe Biden, and the person who cheerleaded that, Kamala Harris. That's how you present it. You don't need anything else.
How much does it matter that the governor of Ohio says that's not the case, that the economy is on the rise there in part because of the injection of migrants there, that they were needed because of what was happening in Springfield? There are challenges, which was his word, but that they are net a positive. Republican governor.
It's his opinion. It's his opinion.
What's
and
his
I disagree with the opinion. I don't think you have unregulated immigration. I don't think it helps the country. And whether the governor is correct or not, I would probably challenge that. The reporting that I've seen out of the town has said, this is not a good situation. That's what I've seen. I haven't been there. But at this point, unregulated migration into the United States is a catastrophe.
Now, they are here
and
legally.
It should just be fact-based.
They are here
and
legally.
That's fine.
But I'm saying they have TPC, they're legally here. But the question is, was it done the right way? Is it enough? Is the support right? The system is obviously broken. Right. The system is obviously broken. That is a big issue in this election. Let me ask you, why do you think the polls are contracting? You and I are both not big buyers of polls. I'll give you a little bit of credit for them being a snapshot of a moment in time, maybe. Trend is your friend. But why? Why is it tightening up?
Well, I learned something today I didn't know. And there's a Fox News poll just out that's got Harris up 2 over Trump, which is, essentially a tie. Mm-hmm. But here's what I learned. I don't know whether this is true or not, but it has a ring of truth to it. Some of the polls that want to deliver positive results for the vice president are now heavy canvassing women. So when you get the methodology for the poll, it now shows conservative, it shows liberal, it shows independent, or Democrat, Republican, independent. I forced those poll companies last year to do that, and I'm happy I did. But you don't have any gender. So you can put the thumb on the scale.
So you think it's oversampled?
2 to 1, oversample the constituency that is going to vote most for Kamala Harris, which are American women. If you oversample, you'll get a more favorable thing. Now, somebody told me that's what's going on. It sounds right, but I cannot say it's a fact.
Do you think the Democrats are missing an opportunity by jumping on the political violence that has targeted Trump and trying to claim high ground of, it doesn't matter what he says, you can't do this, and we are not like him, and anybody who goes after him is the worst of it. Like, really talking about it a lot. They've only said the perfunctory things. I know they made phone calls. That's fine. But they're talking about a lot of other things a lot more than the violence that's been directed towards him. I guess because they think it's bad for them. I see it the opposite way.
Well, it's always been that way since John Adams and Thomas Jefferson went after each other in the second, third presidential race, but Washington had no opponent. So it's always been that way. You'll see it in confronting the presidents. Every campaign is dirty, some dirtier than others. But the Democrats believe that Donald Trump's personality will lead them to victory. So they're going to hit that. I don't have any problem with that, by the way. I don't have any problem as long as they don't call him Hitler, as long as they don't lie about him and saying that he's going to be a dictator on day one, which is an absolute lie. Everybody knows he said that in conjunction with executive orders, and it was just an off-the-cuff remark. I don't like the lying, but I don't mind the policy. I mean, that's what we should be having here. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have it on issues, but remember, the main issue for Kamala Harris is that Trump's the devil. That's the number one issue. She's got no solutions to anything. We saw it again yesterday in Philadelphia, where a journalist there, the black journalist, said, okay, Gaza, Israel, what are you going to do? And she goes, we need to get a ceasefire. Okay, everybody knows that. How would you go about it? And then she'll tell you about her middle-class upbringing. It's absurd. It's exactly what Warren Harding did, Cuomo. And Warren Harding got elected. He's one of the worst presidents of all time because American voters knew nothing about him. And he got elected because he wouldn't give interviews. He wouldn't talk to anybody. I don't know if Kamala's campaign has read Confronting the Presidents, but it's exactly the same. 1920, Warren Harding.
History repeats itself, right? That's why you want to read it, you want to understand it, because you see similar dynamics. Look, my quick take, and we've discussed this and we'll continue to, I don't think the Democrats win in a grievance election. I think if it's a grievance election, meaning we hate them, they hate us, which one is worse? I think it's Trump's race to lose. I think if you go towards engagement, what are we going to do on these issues, versus enragement, which is what are you pissed off about with these issues? I think the engagement is what the Democrats need. We'll see how it goes. Bill O'Reilly, congratulations. I know success is old hat to you, but I still think it's very cool. Confronting the President's #1 on the New York Times bestseller list.
It's very nice.
You know what? And it didn't hurt.
Everybody on NewsNation.
One of the reasons this is probably #1, no picture of you. No picture of you.
It's you.
No picture.
Oh, no picture of me. There is on the back cover. But NewsNation special, Friday night, 9 p.m., a whole hour about the book, and it's a knockout special. So we hope everybody will tape and watch it.
I'm going to watch it with the sound off, and I'm going to pretend what you're saying, and I'm going to come up with my own language. Bill O'Reilly, thank you. 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Up next, just hours after the second assassination attempt. And that's what it was, because that's what the guy says, okay? So I don't know why you would play with it. The truth is enough. Republican Florida Rep Anna Paulina Luna says she was the subject of a very serious shooting threat. And I got to tell you, I'm just as concerned by what one of her neighbors put online. She says this is the left. GOP Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna joins us next. Here's one thing all you partisans should agree on. If you're a Republican, you should say, hey, Trump, you don't need to say things that make people hate Harris for me to vote for you. If you're a Democrat, you should be saying, hey, you don't need to suggest that these people are going to destroy the country and make people hate them for me to vote for you. Because I'll tell you what, it's getting worse. After that second attempt on Trump, and that's what it was, the guy wanted to kill him, one of his fiercest supporters, Florida GOP member of Congress, Anna Paulina Luna, says she was the subject of a very serious shooting threat. She said in a statement today, the threats against her have increased in the past few weeks. The left is who she blames. They continue to push a radical agenda of hate and rhetoric that leads to violence. And she joins us now. Thank you for taking the time. I'm sorry that the family has to deal with this.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a wild, couple of weeks, but what I can tell you is even just earlier today, already we had that one threat come in, and then we got another one as well. And so the rhetoric that continues to be pushed, when you label people a threat to democracy, when you call people like myself who simply are trying to represent people that feel disenfranchised from Washington as MAGA extremists, we get, unfortunately, these types of responses. And so we are taking it very seriously. But, I want to remind people up here in Washington, we're human beings too. I have a family, I have a young son. And to have my information be publicly solicited for strangers to send threatening packages to my home, to receive some of the threats that we've received, no one should ever have to go through that.
Do you think that Trump is missing an opportunity, given that he's been targeted not once but twice, to be the guy who wants to see a change and say, look, I'm not going to say the kinds of things that I have been saying before because this is too much. Obviously, too many of you can't separate speech from action, so we have to get to a better place. I'll be part of that. Do you think he's missing an opportunity?
I think that he's tried on a number of occasions. I know at the RNC he spoke about unity, and he has changed his messaging a bit. But what I will say is it's really hard. I even actually have faced this also. I'll take my experience, for example. Just after I had posted what had happened, I had a outlet that's largely left-leaning actually tried to post that I was, if anything, almost implying that I was making it up. And of course, I'm going to provide the evidence to the people after the investigation is concluded, because I think it's important for people to hear and see exactly what's happening. But again, it's hard because there's so much online that I feel like journalism has turned more into opinion columns instead of reporting the facts.
Now, I, would never betray a confidence, but I told you I was going to betray this one. Is it true that you believe that as a member of Congress, you are more worried for your safety than you were in the military, and why?
I feel like as a member of Congress that right now, especially being that we're at home, what we're experiencing is something that you would see and unfortunately expect as far as harm is concerned. I will say that myself, I'm not a combat veteran, but my husband saw combat. When you have my husband afraid for my safety because you have people threatening to shoot me and you have people threatening to harm, send harmful packages to my home, of course I'm going to feel like that. It doesn't feel safe right now to be in politics, and I really want to emphasize that we're at a point in American history where you have people afraid to come to work. Obviously, I'm up for the job. Obviously, I'm here to serve. I'm not going to be intimidated or threatened into backing down, but the fact is that this is becoming very escalated, and I can't emphasize this enough. If the rhetoric doesn't calm down, someone will get killed, and I hope it's not President Trump. We've seen that it's been now a second assassination attempt. We're getting threats to our offices. I'm not the only member receiving them.
Right.
But I think it's important for the American people to know that this is a very real danger we're facing.
God forbid we have to deal with anything worse. Do you know this neighbor sending these creepy-ass messages on social media? Do you know him?
No, I don't know him personally. And what I will say is, I only found out about that because one of our constituents had reported that my information was being solicited online and that there was information requesting people to send suspicious and threatening packages to my home. But I think it's more important to note that it took days for even my opponent to respond to that and to condemn it. And I think no matter what, I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, violence should not be tolerated. So the fact that it took so long for them to respond, it was only because there was a public outcry that this is unacceptable, I think, from a lot of people, to include people in the press.
Does it hit different when it's someone who, lives near you?
I just think it goes to show that it seems like politicians are somewhat dehumanized, and when you're using that type of rhetoric, it's easy to think people are just kind of up here and we're invincible, but at the end of the day, we're human. And I would argue that, that person probably doesn't know what it's like to be a young mom and have a 1-year-old at home and to be publicly sending out my information to people. It's really scary. I'm glad that I have law enforcement backing me on it and that they're investigating. But again, I put that information out there, and then you see some of the articles that come out making it seem like it's been alleged, and it hasn't. It's a very serious open investigation. And when the time is right, I'm going to present that information to the American people because it's important that they know what's happening in their country.
Anna Paulina Luna, I will come at your ideas, but I will also come at anybody who comes at you personally. Thank you for serving in Congress. Thank you for coming here to tell what's going on. You're always welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right. 4 minutes and 45 seconds. Got to be better. Got to be better. Yesterday, Hezbollah blamed Israel for blowing up thousands of their pagers A dozen killed, at least thousands, they say, injured. Now, here's the tricky part. Many of them civilians. Today, a second round of explosions blew up walkie-talkies. 14 people killed. Is Israel on the verge of all-out war? And where is the line of right and wrong? A man who knows. Next. Remember anything like this? Now it's walkie-talkies. Israel has not denied the allegation that they're behind thousands of pagers that were belonging to members of the terrorist organization Hezbollah in Lebanon, all blown up at once. 12 people died. Thousands were hurt, including innocent civilians. Today, walkie-talkies all over Lebanon, in the hands of alleged Hezbollah members, went off. 20 dead, hundreds more wounded. One of the explosions took place at the funeral for an 8-year-old girl. Reports say that Israeli intelligence booby-trapped the pagers and walkie-talkies. Israel said today it's shifting its war effort from Gaza to Lebanon. So, where is right and wrong in this? Former CIA case officer, spent decades in the Middle East, okay? Still on a Hezbollah hit list. Robert Baer. It's good to see you, brother.
Israelis are going to go in. I can see it coming. They took in their communications. Netanyahu has promised that he's going to go in, and I think it's going to be a ground invasion, and it's going to be very destructive, just as destructive as it was in Gaza. They've already moved the division today up to the border. So it's got 2 divisions in the north, 2 divisions on Gaza, and I think you're going to see some sort of aerial attack to start with, and all signs point that way.
Was Israel wrong to do these attacks this way, given the injuries to civilians who, by all accounts, were just that, not members of Hezbollah?
Well, they had a choice of either taking these communications out and infrastructure with large bombs or with these small devices. So either way, remember, Chris, after 7 October, all rules are gone. It's just that way. It was such a shock to Israel that the gloves are off.
Would we do this?
Oh, absolutely not. We were not involved in this.
No. Would we?
We couldn't do it. We would kill individuals with drones, but we would never set off explosions intentionally inside markets, buses, medical facilities, never.
Is it wrong that Israel did this?
Everything that goes on in the Middle East is wrong. The rules that no longer apply, the international law is gone.
You think it only gets worse?
It's going to get worse. I think a regional conflict, you can never say, will cascade into spreading violence that may involve Iran and then would involve the Gulf. And then who knows where it goes from there. And we might be drawn into it.
Well, if we're supporting things that we wouldn't do, that Israel does,